1 second. Takes a minute for everybody to realize we're live. Hi, everybody. I'll tell you in a second.
There we go. It just came out.
You can see it?
Yep.
All right.
Hey,
Hey, Brandon. How you doing, Brandon? We're going to give this a few minutes, guys. We're just going to let some people realize that we're live. We're here at Cave. That is Mehdi and Ed Sorenson. This is going to be quite amazing. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. We're here at Cave Adventures. First of all, everybody, this was their 20th anniversary today, and that's pretty awesome. We had a big event I went live on earlier. There was like well over, 125 to 150 people there?
160 people on the sign-in for shirts. So there was probably close to 180, 200 total.
Yeah. So that was a great event. We were out right by the pond, the mill pond, and there was food, there were vendors, there were giveaways, and it was really a huge turnout. The sheriff, by the way, was super welcoming. He loves you. He said, you guys just are super close. So let me tell you what I want to do, what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a couple of big topics. The big topics that I'm going to talk about are, I'm going to let Ed and Mehdi talk a little bit about the KISS rebreathers. The KISS sidewinder rebreather, obviously something they do a tremendous amount of training on here. But in particular, everybody, I want to finish a conversation we started a few months ago about, it was an experiment where we filmed Ed underwater, very controlled, and I'll let him set it up. But basically what we did is we cut off his O2 to determine if at 90 feet, your O2 shutoff valve accidentally turned your O2 off, would he go hypoxic? Just staying at that depth at first. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to let Ed talk about another experiment he did, very controlled. He'll set up that nobody should ever do the stuff that we are talking about, by the way. I'm going to start with that, where he ascended without his O2 on. And we'll talk about why is that such a risky thing to do? What does that do mathematically to your PO2? And whether or not he went hypoxic on that. We want to sort of have that ongoing discussion about the rebreather. And then I also want them to talk about, look, they are known, I'm just kind of frank, and I've taken classes here.
Get in front of the camera.
Your training here, this is my opinion for whatever I'm entitled to say. It's hard, really hard. I think cave diving is really hard. I do not think it's easy to cave dive. Why? Because now I know what it means to cave dive properly. Oh, you can go in a cave and throw on some gear and cave dive. But you may die. But you need to do it properly. You need to be trained properly. And when you come here, I love what they always say. I look at my cave adventure certification a lot. Because I've worked hard for it. It was really hard.
You earned it.
And I earned it because, I had to practice and work with Mehdi and practice until he was finally like, now I'm willing to let you go to your test again, which I failed the first time, deservingly. I'm telling you though, when you come out of that journey here, you really are a better diver. And I think you're also safe and you don't cut corners. You do all the things you need to do so we don't die doing what we do. And if you use all of this gear properly, I believe overall, and then I'm going to stop talking, that you actually have so many more options and are actually safer than if I jump in with a good old-fashioned open circuit system. With that stage set, can you talk about the first experiment you did and why you did it, and then with the hypoxia issue, and then what you did second, and your thoughts on all of this?
Love to. First of all, with relationship to what Woody said earlier about the classes here are hard. So one of the things when I started teaching again, because I quit teaching for quite a while, started teaching again back in 2009. Because I saw the degradation of training. In fact, the NSSC CDS conference one year, the whole theme was degradation of training. The training has gotten so bad that the instructors are just regurgitating what they were taught. And like anything, back in the copying machine days, the Xerox days, you know, many decades, 40, 50 years ago, you always had to have a master. Because if you copied, and then you made a copy from the copy, and a copy from that copy, pretty soon it was illegible. You didn't even know what you had. And that's what training has gotten to be. So I was tired of putting people in body bags. I've been doing the body recovery, and you guys all know me, for almost 3 decades. And it used to be untrained people was who we were putting in body bags from cave diving, but now it was trained people. And I got to see cave instructors that I wouldn't pass through my intro class. And what we started doing here is we're very big on fundamentals. And I see instructors that don't have good fundamentals. They don't have proper trim. Their feet are in the dirt. They're kneeling down. I've seen some, I won't even name the training agency, well, one training agency not too long ago had videos, and the instructor was putting a primary reel in underneath. That's absolutely uncalled for and unnecessary. And so we stress fundamentals. In fact, we started about 6 months ago stressing that people start before they even do cavern and intro, taking a side mount and a fundamental source. Or if they're already side mount, doing the fundamental source. And then we've had a lot of people that were self-taught side mount. They still took the side mount and fundamental source. And those people breeze through class. I ask people quite often, do you know who this is? And everybody says, you? No, it's a 15-year-old kid that worked for me, wanted to become a cave diver. I taught him. He was the very first person, him and Frank, that were working here, the very first 2 people that ever did an open water class, a basic starting open water class in double tank side mount. There's still a story about him on the internet. That was back in 2010, I believe. Anyway, this is how he was taught. There was never any kneeling on the bottom. Never any kneeling on the bottom. Not from the first second. They were horizontal, they were knees bent, they were feet up. They were not even taught the flutter kick until the very last day of class. So this is what he looked like right after class, and 20 days later he was getting ready for cavern class. But anyway, so fundamentals. To the hypoxia thing. So when we did the original one, and that was quite a while ago, I think that was almost like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
My brain is
Almost 2 years ago, and still somebody just came up with a really rude email. And John, you know who you are. Don't do that. You're more of a professional than that.
That was wrong.
So he wrote Woody and said, what Ed's teaching or doing or professing, or I forgot how he worded it, is dangerous and going to get people killed. Well, one, if you have something to say to me, you know my phone number, and I emailed it again to you, by the way, and you are still crickets after bashing him online. Please don't get a keyboard coward. If you have something to say to me, everybody on this planet knows my phone number. If you don't, text me, I'll give it, or message me, I'll give it to you. If you have something to say to me, say it to me. Don't be a keyboard coward. I hate that. So,
And we don't need to, because I mean, let's bring up the dive.
we're all professionals.
Yeah.
Let's not let our egos get in the way.
Maybe you have a good point, but talk about it.
There's
and then-
things I like, there's things I don't like. But I never tell my students what they can and cannot do. I tell them this is how I do it and this is why. The particular hypoxia issue was another couple of people that are supposed to be professionals also bashed me after that video. And one of them, who is supposed to be a very intelligent person, I think he passed the bar exam and was a practicing attorney before he quit, got fired, whatever happened, and said if it was anybody other than Ed Sorenson, he would have his teaching credentials revoked. Well, A, Charlie, watch the video again, because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Because we did, what, a 15-minute preamble? Right here in the shop, where I told everyone watching, don't try this at home. I'm a professional. I had 4 safety divers, 3 cameras on me, and oh yeah, I know how to read PO2. So I was actually quite safe. And I had done everything before anyway, I know what I'm doing. The key was some people don't like shutoffs, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. If you don't like it, don't like it. I don't care. I'm not going to try and tell you. I'm not. I don't care if you have one. I just don't care. But don't put complete, absolutely falsehoods and garbage out on the internet just because you know how to type. And that's what this whole thing was about, was they said it was about a fatality that occurred in January. And I was very clear on that too. We are not accident analysis here. Period. It was said by some, I don't want to say idiots, but we'll say people, yeah, we'll say people, that his O2 shutoff was bumped off and he died. Well, this whole thing was just to prove that is impossible. And it is. It is. It's not Ed's opinion. It's Ed's fact. It's the entire universe's fact. So, to make sure it was fact, we did it on video. Like I said, don't try this at home. I'm a trained professional. I had 4 safety divers. I know what I'm doing. I'd done it before. I knew I was right. I not only shut the oxygen off, but just to make sure Ed didn't cheat and have a fake shutoff, I had Woody disconnect my O2 bottle.
Yep.
Now, a lot of instructors teach, oh, you just ran out of oxygen. What happens? Oh, you have to bail out.
Right.
No, bailout's always in the no box on a flow chart. However, there's a million other options. It's not that big a deal. So, I showed my PO2. I had one camera just on my PO2. I also wore no wing so that you could see my counter lung expanding and contracting. Everything was transparent so that I couldn't hide anything, and there was no camera tricks or sleight of hand or anything like that, because it is simply impossible. At one depth, your O2 gets shut off. You absolutely, 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 and I don't know if you heard me, absolutely cannot go hypoxic. I even said that I was going to start with above minimum loop volume, which I always dive at minimum loop volume, which for those of you who don't know is 1 lung full of gas. Just so that it would go longer, to prove the point even more so. And after, what was it, 9, 10, 11 minutes, it went from 1.3 to 0.98. Now, what is hypoxic? Below 0.15, 0.14. You shouldn't go even close to that, but, I mean, 0.9, that's almost pure oxygen at the surface.
Exactly.
That's pure oxygen. Is that hypoxic? No, I'm at 0.21 now. I'm doing just fine. I don't know about you guys. So, the point was, as we breathe, we metabolize about 3 to 4% of the oxygen in whatever we breathed in. And we turned it into carbon dioxide. Now, when that comes out through our rebreather, the rebreather scrubs that carbon dioxide out. If we don't have any oxygen to replenish that oxygen, our PO2 is going to drop. That is a proven fact. We are all in agreement on that. However, the point was to prove you can't bump it off and die. That's lunacy. Anybody that tells you that, you can tell them right now they're full of it. We won't even say it, but you know. So, it's impossible. The whole video was proved it was impossible. The whole video did prove it was impossible, but people still had to have snarky comments because the proof, the actual facts, the actual truth, didn't fit their narrative and their bullshit story. So, and then
Because the lung volume will collapse down to the point that you will not be able to breathe.
yes,
Before your PO2 drops, I mean, it was 0.9.
That-
Forget about hypoxia.
Yeah.
He had to, so what was he gonna do? Either
had to
not breathe, he's close to being a fish, but he decided, okay, I'm no longer, he was holding the video, that indicated my lungs are empty, I have no air, and he added dill. He added the dill gas back in so he could breathe, which I think you were diving like a 32%.
So it would have been about
94
1.1.
atmosphere, so 1.1. It brought it back up to a 1.1. It's impossible.
So
That's why it's impossible.
when that 4% gets 3 to 4% gets scrubbed out, it's gone. Gone. So each breath, that lung volume is going to get less and less and less and less. So when we do CCR in the class, or SCR, I tell them to shut it off and swim, and I tell them to swim it down to 0.8. That's still the equivalent of 80% oxygen at the surface.
I love that drill. You guys.
There's a lot of oxygen in there. It's nowhere near unsafe. Most of the students can't get to 0.8 because there's not enough lung volume, and they have to add DIL, which raises the PO2, and it'll eventually come down. So anyway, we weren't saying that rebreathers are so safe nobody could ever die. If you heard that on the video, get the wax out of your ears, learn how to listen to English. I don't care what you do, but you obviously are one, I don't want to say an idiot, because I'm not going to say it, or you don't know how to listen, or you only heard what you wanted to hear, or you just wanted to type shit on the internet, because that's apparently what you do. But anyway, either way, it's nonsense. Please stop. If you have, I've always said to Woody, if somebody has something to say, give me a call. That's why he decided to do this live. So if you have a question, and if you're one of those experts that needs to teach me something, like John in Mexico, please type on in or call me. I have my phone right here. I'll be glad to take your call. I'll put it on speakerphone. We'll go live now, and you can teach me about reading.
Yeah, for sure you can type your questions right now. Absolutely, these guys will answer them.
So,
but then you, okay, guys.
So I did this just to prove that the entire statement was he bumped his oxygen and died. That's impossible. Then one person said, oh, he had a hypoxic dip. He had 1040. Okay, that's fine. If he was at the surface after about 4 or 5 breaths, he probably would have died. But he wasn't at the surface. He was at 110 feet. That's like a 0.45 something. So there again, whether it was bumped off or he shut it off, doesn't matter. We're not doing accident analysis. That's not our job. Are you a detective?
Nope.
Are you? No, I'm not. So, okay, so we're not doing that. The thing is, we're stating facts. The facts are he was at a death. He had his ADV plugged off. So the ADV wasn't firing. That means when the volume got, whether you shut it off or bumped it off, doesn't matter. The volume would have got to a point where he would have had to add something. Anybody that knows how to dive a rebreather knows you should check your PO2 about every 30 seconds to a minute. No more than 4 minutes, and it's impossible. I showed it on the video. It went from 1.3 to 0.98 in 9 or 10 minutes. Who doesn't check their PO2 in 9 or 10 minutes?
That's a problem.
Plus,
You shouldn't die of a rebreather.
his ADV was off. So the only way he could replenish that volume was he had to physically, manually add DIL unit. So if he was adding it and not looking at his PO2, I don't know what to tell you. Is that dangerous? Absolutely.
Yes.
Should anybody do that? Does anybody teach that?
It's
No,
every
absolutely.
page on at least the IANT material on the bottom. Every single page of the instruction materials in the PowerPoint says check
your
PO2.
PO2.
Yeah.
Every single
CDI is the
slide.
same, PSI
Number
is the
one
same.
rule of rebreather diving is the same as number one rule of open water diving. Know what you're breathing, period, end of story. So, then one of these experts that likes to type said, oh, but Ed didn't go up. Okay, well, we were talking about an incident where the guy was at a static 110 foot depth. Okay, but no, Ed didn't. But, so Ed went back and did it again. Now, he did something that no humans of right mind should ever do, and I am going to tell you, please, do not do this. Do not do this. Should Ed have done this? Absolutely not. Did he? Yes, because I'm a test diver. I've been a test diver. In fact, Mike made me a crash dummy long time ago, Ed the crash dummy, because I test their stuff, and I do things that most humans shouldn't do.
And you did it with safety diver again.
And I did it
Sure,
with-
everything was right.
And I know PO2, and I've gone hypoxic before. I
Yeah,
know
so
what
just to
PO2.
set this next story up, when you ascend, viewers, when you go up, your PO2, the partial pressure, is going to decrease because you have less pressure as you're going up, right? So your partial pressure of your O2 automatically, as you ascend, is going to go down. And that was the argument they were making. Well, you didn't really prove anything because he was going up and then went hypoxic. So,
Well,
you should do what he's about to tell you he did.
he wasn't going up.
And he wasn't
You
going
can check the data on his computer, he wasn't going up.
He wasn't
But
going up,
A,
slammed up to go.
so I went back to the exact same spot, roughly 100 feet. 95, 96, whatever. Okay. I had a PO2 at 1.3, which is where I always dive. In fact, every ECCR that I've had, I've certified on 15 rig riggers, all came at a set point of 1.3. That's standard. So I was at a 1.3. I shut my oxygen off, and I swam to the surface. No one should ever do that. Please don't ever do that. Please don't ever do that. Please don't ever do that. But it was to prove a point again. And my safety got delayed on the way up, so I sat there for an extra 4 minutes. Then I did a safety stop, which I didn't have to do, and if I was in a hurry to get to the surface, and I have no idea why anybody would do this, so I have no idea what scenario would transpire, unless you were out of everything. And I was still fine. I went all the way to the surface, and I was barely hypoxic. And I had not done the safety stops, I wouldn't even have gone below 21%, which is what we're breathing right now.
So just imagine you go all the way to the surface without your O2 on, and you still don't look at your PO2.
And not adding any dough.
And you're not adding dough. Like, I mean, yes, of course, you can force this thing to kill you, but that's the point. Like, he would have had to literally break every single basic rule of rebreather diving.
Now, some of you that don't know rebreathers as well are probably thinking, Ed just said, you're taking some of that gas out and you have to replenish it. How could you go all the way to the surface? Well, that's easy too, because as the pressure releases, so does the compression. So a lung full of gas at 90 feet is gonna be 4 times as big at the surface. So a lungful would fill up this table when you got to the surface. So as you're coming up, it's expanding. Now the PO2 is dropping, which is dangerous, don't do it. For the 14th time, don't do it. The PO2 is dropping, my pressure is releasing, the gas is expanding, so I had plenty of gas.
Probably had to get that gas out.
So I had to keep burping gas out because it was growing more than my lungs could take. But I was just fine. So even going all the way to the surface, which why somebody would say that is nonsensical in the first place, because no human would ever do that unless you absolutely ran out of every gas you had with you, which is what, 1 in a trillion maybe? 1 in 2 trillion? But even then, I lived through it. Hey, guess what? I'm still here. So that pretty much killed all the nonsensical things that people have said. So now, what we're doing is we're live, and the lovely Terry here is going to read us some of the comments, and we are going to take them live. We're not going to Google any answers. We're not going to ask any experts. We're just here. Fire away. Go ahead.
So right now, a lot of the questions that have come in are not related to the incident or not related to what you guys are technically speaking about.
Okay?
If you want to take general questions, we can certainly do
Definitely.
that. Okay,
We'll take every question.
we'll take every question.
We love you all.
Ed, what was your scariest cave diving incident?
Well,
Yeah.
that's funny
That's a great question.
because that was asked to me not too long ago. About 2 years ago, I was approached by Stratus Koss, and he was writing a book called Close Calls. And if you haven't bought it yet, please do. It's a tremendous book, great book. And he said, I'm writing a book, all these big name divers, and I want you to write a story on a close call. And so I'm thinking, So I said, I don't write. I do. I'm just a doer. I don't write. I hate typing. That's why I do these things live. So I actually sat down and wrote a story, which was painstaking for me because I'm terrible. As soon as I start typing, my mind goes, I must have ADD.
Okay.
So I write this story, and it was about one of the rescues I did. How this guy almost died, blah, blah, blah. And I got to get saved him, we got to go home. It was great for everybody. Stratus wrote it, read it, and he said, wow, that was a great story, but it's supposed to be about you. I said, what do you mean? He goes, a close call you had. I said, I haven't had a close call. And he said, I've heard you have 12,000 cave dives. I'm like, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you had no close calls. I said, no. Now, I'm on speakerphone in my office with Stratus. And Stacy goes, well, what about the time you and Jason did this? And I said, well, that was just another day in the office. And he goes, well, let me hear that story. So I told him, he's like, oh my God, that's not a close call. I said, no, that's just another day
Okay,
in the
well,
office.
it is, now I want to know.
So it's a long story. But, so we were about 10,000 feet back. This is when we were doing JV2 back in 2006, I think.
Okay, just for you guys that don't know, like, only a few people in the world go, that's really far.
Yeah, a lot of people, 1,000 feet's a long way. Mehdi's getting the proof that this actually happens.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
so we're 10,000 feet back, and we're going where no human has ever been before. And I'm laying line, and it's getting smaller and smaller. It's like this tall. And we're scrunching through there. And now, no, we'd done that the day before, and we were surveying that section, and then we were going to explore the new section where we left off. And I'm in the lead, and I realize the line's running along the ceiling. It's this tall. I realize I'm on the wrong side of the line. It's bigger over there. I need to go over there. We know in cave diving, we teach never cross under a line, and here's why. That was the only way to do it this segment. So I'm ducking into the line, and the line's moving. And I'm like, shit, I'm caught in something, which is why we teach don't do this. And I can't figure it out. And I can't get it out. Like, there's nothing back there. And this is back when we were, the very first side mount rigs had just come out. The dive right known that. And I'm caught. Had I been by myself, I'd have been in a world of trouble. I'd had to cut the line. So I took my rig out of my mouth and I yelled at Jason, what's going on? And all of a sudden he's like wrestling me around. He's wrestling an alligator and I'm just laying there in the sill like, what the heck's going on? And then what happened was all this tight scraping that we were doing wore a hole in my wing. That's about a 10-inch gash. My bladder had come out.
Can you guys see it? Can they see it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
The bladder had come out and got between the ceiling and the line, and then a little bit of gas bubble popped up here, and I couldn't get out. So Jason gets it out, tucks it in. Now he's trying to do all this in no space. I'm wedged in it. Then he grabs one of my safety grips, and he said, give me a knife. Look, here's part of the line. He actually stitched this thing back together, 10,000 feet back, 100 feet deep, in the water, on open circuit. And then he says, don't use any gas. I'm like, we gotta swim 10,000 feet out. But anyway, so the whole thing, and then we get out of that section, we get back to our scooter. Now, we only had one scooter with us and our tanks. Our stage bottles and next scooters are at 5,000 feet. We hit the trigger at 100 feet and my scooter died. And Jason comes back and he's looking at me like, what are you doing? And I said, this is broken. So he hooks up and we start to tow. We get about another 100 feet and his dies. And, and it was getting a little intense. And pretty soon he swims faster than I do. And he was like, come on, come on. And I said, you go. And I figured at this point, he needed to do what was best for him, I needed to do what was best for me. And I just went slow and kicked and glided with the flow. Anyway, we
Well,
were.
when you did that, when you said you go, did you think in your mind, I just want to know what was in your mind at that point. Did you think I'm going to make it, I'm fine, I have enough gas, or I may not make it?
So there was a sinkhole at 5,000 feet that we could have surfaced in to breathe in.
Okay.
We couldn't get out. You have to have climbing gear to get out.
Okay.
But whenever we were doing stuff back there, I would always tell the guy that ran the shop, we're supposed to be back at this time. If we're not, meet us at the sinkhole, and I had a rope in a bag with knots, a big 3/4 inch rope with knots every foot. And I said, have this rope and have a sandwich, I'll be hungry. So I figured we should have no problem at least getting to there, and it was only another 500 feet to our stage bottles and scooters. And when we got out, we were both fairly low on gas, and Jason looked at me and said, I was getting fairly concerned. And then he said, you know, I've only been concerned, because Jason's been keeping longer than I have, a long time. And he said, you know, I've only been concerned a couple times in my life, came at it. And he said, I just realized all of them have been with you. And I said, well, that's not all my fault. Ooh, Jason and I always have an eye plan and we never stick to the plan. So, anyway,
But
that's.
you did have that contingency. Like, I really like that. I like what you just said. Like, that's really
Having a
a
backup
level
plan
on
is
having a
the
backup
goal.
plan. You plan that ahead of time.
And think ahead to have the pretty good sandwich. I like to eat.
That's nice.
That's
So that was my, and I didn't really even think that was scary. I thought that was just another day in the office, so, but I guess that's as close as you get.
Wow.
So our next question comes from Paul Lovelace, and Paul's question is, who would Ed choose to rescue him if he needed rescue?
You know, the sheriff, there's been 3 different sheriffs in this small town. And all of them have said, ooh, you know, when Stacy's telling the story about some hair raising thing that she thought was hair raising. And they're like, who would we call? And I don't even know, because when we were doing JV2, there was a bunch of really small bottle off restrictions. And I even asked Jason one day, I said, if, you know, because we kept the section of line out so that nobody could find it. And I even asked him when a couple people found it. And several of them had no business being back there. And I said, what's going to happen if somebody dies in here? He said, you're going to have to cut it off. That's the only way to get them out. So, anyway, yeah, I don't even know. I'm not even going to worry about it. Because I'll be dead. So,
I mean, if Mike Young was around, maybe you would.
maybe Mike, I've always just told Stacy, just tell him to leave me in there. That's what I want to be in with. So, stick me in the corner and, you know, put a blackout.
Mehdi, would you try? Would you?
Yeah.
You would try one.
But I don't think I can do one of those.
No, I don't think anybody can, but.
I don't have the big golden board that Jonathan gave him. Have you seen that?
All right, what's the next question?
So the next question is from Brandon Blueback. Have you tried the Sidewinder 2, any or all of you yet?
So yes, I was on the very first try, the very first test dive. Patrick Whitman and I, he had 2 of them, and he was supposed to come here to do it, and then he had busy schedule and we had some free time, so Stacy and I flew over to Mexico. That was in February, and we did dive the very first prototype. They really weren't ready at the time. And in fact, Patrick just messaged me last night saying that he'd have mine fairly soon. So they're making some progress, and it's coming along nicely. So yes, I have.
David B. asks, on your rebreather fundies class, could I bring my spirit and how many days is it?
So minimum of 2 days, and it basically just depends on how many days you want. I've got a guy coming up in a couple weeks. He just finished CCR Cave with another instructor, and it was funny because we were just promoting talking about it. We've never even advertised that we do fundamentals yet, but some people are hearing about it. I don't even know how they're hearing about it, but I saw this guy shot a video. And look, I just finished CCR Cave, and I was just telling Mehdi, because he had just got back from France, and he was still in Colorado, and we were talking on the phone, and they said, you know, I wouldn't have posted that video, but that's just me. And it was like a week later, he was in the shop. So, and I said, that means a lot to me, that you knew that your fundamentals were not there, and you want to correct it. A lot of people, once they get a cave card, they think they're done, and they're absolutely not done. So, yes, you can bring your spirit. I'm a diver and instructor level on everything KISS makes. So, if KISS made it, I'm even an instructor on some of the things that nobody knows KISS made yet. So, yes, you are.
Aaron's question is, has anyone ever stolen your stage bottles that you leave by the entrance?
So,
Yeah,
an excellent question. I've been here 20 years. We've never had anything stolen ever until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Patrick, my shop manager, left. his oxygen bottle clipped about 20 feet into the cavern, off into the corner, and it was stolen. And the park has cameras, and we actually had them get the footage. We were playing it back, and the girl that was brought in to manage the shop when the park manager's not there, she said, oh, was it yellow and was it tat? She talked to the guy and watched him steal. But it was, and she said, I'm so sorry. I said, it's not your fault. You didn't know. And he told her, I keep it in there. I usually just leave it there, but it needs to be filled. So we had him on video, but there wasn't a camera that showed the section of parking lot that he was in. The cave divers all go over here. It wasn't a cave diver, it was an open water diver. And we narrowed it down to 3 trucks, and the sheriff's department has the video. So if anybody knows who that is, if you just return it, there'll be no questions asked. If the sheriffs have to come to your house, you'll be prosecuted and you'll go to jail.
But thankfully, Patrick was out of the water at that time. It could have been quite dramatic.
That's what I
He
wanted
was
to
diving and needed that O2 bottle
There you go.
when
It
it
could have
came
been
out.
fake.
It could have been him dead.
That's what I wanted to stress. Like, I don't think you understand that. If you had to bail out, that O2 bottle is sitting there waiting for you so that you can deco and get out of the cave, because you would run out of gas and die. Do you understand? So you're potentially stealing
Well, look at-
somebody's life support system at 20 feet.
Look what happened to
That's
John
deadly.
Jones about 15 years ago. He had an incident in Madison Blue, had to ditch his rebreather. He's coming out on the what's left of his bailout from way inside the cave, and he drew his last breath going through the rabbit hole, and his oxygen bottle was 10 feet away when he took the last breath, and he dove for that bottle, got on it. Had somebody stole that, died.
Gone.
He'd been dead. So I have not. Patrick has. It's the only incident that I've heard of in 20 years. This is usually a very safe place. If anybody knows who that is, tell them to just bring it back. We'll call it a day. And, you know, that's that.
If it's not yours, you don't know what it is, just leave it.
Yeah.
It belongs to someone that might need it.
So the follow-up question to that, we talk about how dangerous cave diving is. How do your families feel about you diving?
Okay, excellent question.
Love that question.
So for one, cave diving is not dangerous. Cave diving is extremely safe with proper training. The problem is, we talked about at the onset of this, the degradation of training. So there's so many instructors that, you know, they just get pats on the back. Oh yeah, you did a great job. Chris Richardson, one of my good friends, part owner with Deep Six, started Deep Six. He calls them feel-good instructors. But with good training, it's a very safe sport. With poor training, it's a very unforgiving sport when things go wrong. You have to be able to rely on what should be second nature. And if it's taught to you over and over and over, one of the cave test questions are, what are the skills performed best under stress? The answer, those that are practiced regularly. So it's a very, very, very safe sport, especially with the equipment nowadays. I mean, the lights back in, you know, Check X these days, you just knew that light was to go in with.
Yeah.
You were never coming out with that light. It just wasn't going to happen. So you had to take a lot of backup lights and hope that they worked. And they were, you know, I mean, the best primary light now is not even near as bright as my backup light. So it's a very safe sport. The equipment's so much better. There's great training available. Just seek it out and get it.
For me,
Oh.
I just want to say one thing. My family does worry about it, and I talked to them about it. What I did is I went through with them and I said, look, let me tell you what was drilled into my cave training, which is the 5 rules of cave diving. But I want you to just hear about them so you understand I will not deviate from those 5 rules. And then I add a 6th, it's a Woody rule. Like, I will not cave dive by myself. I don't feel like I'm qualified. I don't do it enough. That's not a rule, one of the 5 rules. So what I did is I just sat down with my family, who doesn't like when I cave dive, and I explained what I'm doing and why these rules are fundamental, and that now you can see that if I don't deviate from those, I actually have a whole lot of options. If I do deviate from those, it's unforgiving. So talk about cave diving in a logical way that explains why we have these rules, what we're doing, why we have the training that we have, and why we don't deviate from that. It can be really made safe, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
So my family, at first they all thought I was insane, because every time I would come, I was a support member. Thank you very
You
much.
may, by the way.
And,
I mean, I'm not gonna.
and every time we'd come home, we'd have videos of us squeezing into little stuff, and this was before we were inside that dive. And then when the IUCR was formed in 98 or 99, whenever it was kind of an invite-only thing, and I was invited somehow, and we were going out to dinner. I think it was my birthday, and of course my girlfriend and my mom and dad, and she was very unhappy that I was now a volunteer body recovery diver. As if she knew how she thought how dangerous cave diving was anyway. And then to do this and then not be paid for it on top of that. And so we're at dinner, and she said, "So, why don't you tell your mom about your new job?" Well, I own my own excavation and construction company. And my mom said, "What do you mean new job? When did you get a new job?" So I told her about the body recovery. She was like, "Wow, that sounds really dangerous. That must pay really well." And I said, "No, I don't want to." She said, "Oh, well, you'll be quitting that." I said, "No, I won't." And here's why. Because you know me, I've always been a lie behind the how kind of guy. And I said, Dad taught me, always help people when you can. And that's the way I was brought up since I was a very young boy. When we came around the corner, right after taking a first aid class, when I was like 15 years old, and we immediately were the first guard on safety. We help and help and help. That's what we do. That's what my dad taught me to do. So I said the entire thing about the IUCR, why it was formed, was so that first responders, fire department rescue teams, and police rescue teams wouldn't have to go in and try and get these bodies out that they weren't trained for, because the overhead environment is extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So I said, this will save their lives. And I said, if I can do that, I'm going to do that. And I've been doing it now for 26 years or whatever, 25 years, whatever it's been.
To me, my family, I don't think they fully understand the extent of what I do. I do videos of extreme sports, and they kind of get hanged up with the skydiving, thinking this is absolutely insane. The only one that really understands is my lovely wife, Daphne, and she's fine with it. She knows I'll do everything, I know everything I can to stay safe, because I'm a really safe guy, even though I like to take risks. Funny enough, like a few weeks ago, she got mad because I didn't call her after teaching, and I was like, I'm just teaching, I'm in the cavern, I'm not like 12,000 feet back in Jackson Blue with Patrick doing crazy stuff like we do. And she said, I'm more worried when you are teaching with students than when you are diving for yourself for fun. And it didn't click to me, but then she made a point, and I can understand, so now I make sure I do the whole call every time I'm out of the water straight away.
I think that in my new experience, after how many stories that I have heard from you guys, one of my rules with my family is I'll give them a heads up when I get in the water, and I give them a window. And then if you don't hear from me by this amount of hours, then you can worry. But until then, things happen. You know, we get out of the water, people have conversations, we debrief, and then I can go reach for my phone. But here's the window of time that I'm gonna have, and then if you don't hear from me by then you can worry.
I
But
remember on one of the rescues I did, the guy was in the air pocket, and literally that was nothing short of a miracle, because he was actually dying when I got it. 5 seconds later, he'd been dead. But his thing was, he was to call his wife after every dive. Now, of course, he was 3.5 hours overdue. And then he's with, I'm getting out, then he's with the paramedics, then he's with the sheriff's department. Then we're back here. And now it's like 6+ hours overdue. And I remember the phone ringing, and he starts walking away from everybody by the fill station. And I kind of nonchalantly walked close enough because I wanted to eavesdrop on this because I knew it was his wife. And he's like, oh, hey, honey, yeah, sorry I didn't call. The dive ran longer than expected. He didn't what? The dive ran longer than expected. Anyway, what's the next question we got?
Next question is, interestingly enough, Dive Talk did a video about this from Dima last year, but people want to know, Ed, air integration or SPG?
Okay, so for me personally, I like SPGs. I almost never look at them because I don't care. My bailout, once I'm in a cave, is what it is. So if I have a failure and I get on it, well, what do I need to look at it for anyway? I either have enough or I don't. I always plan to have way more than I need. My oxygen has a little teeny gauge about that big. I want to know it's full when I got in there. If it leaks, I can hear the size of the bubble. Rebreathers are silent. So if I know it's full, I've done over 8-hour dives on that 2-liter bottle. So I know my oxygen is going to last 8 hours. I'm probably not going to be in the water 8 hours. If I am, I'm going to have off-board oxygen. So, but for my students, they ask me that a lot. Can I have this? Can I have that? I don't care. As long as I have a way of monitoring your gas, I'm happy. I prefer if you have AI, and they're great. I mean, the last recovery I did, we can tell exactly when he bailed out. We can tell exactly his RMD. We can tell exactly when he ran out of gas. So it's great for accident analysis. It's a modern day feature. It's fantastic, but remember they do fail. So you should at least have a little button gauge, and you know everything about cave diving is redundancy. We are redundant in everything. So if you're going to do AI, sure, have redundancy.
I find it quite handy teaching when they do lost line drill and they're searching around. You don't have to get too close to look at that. You can just glance at the computer and you get everything just there. Okay, perfect.
All right, next question.
I already answered that question on the video from Dive Talk, so you can refer back to that.
There you go.
Is there any cave diving in the Mammoth Cave system, and have any of you dove there?
So I have not. I thought that was all dry. And fairly high altitude, so, but I don't know. I have not, so I can't answer that. What else we got?
Give me just a second.
So none of our keyboard cowards, apparently, that have lots to say about it all the time, didn't have anything to say about
Probably
it.
because you explained it now. I hope they.
Well, I explained it before too.
And
so.
you know, that was good for not knowing anything about rebreathers. Because didn't one of them tell you knew nothing about rebreathers?
Or did
I'm
you teach
amazed
me
you
about
read really fast. Did
Yeah,
you tell?
I learned that. I learned that also too, and I talked a week ago. So yeah.
Where is Gus?
He had an event tonight with his daughter, and it was pretty important.
But we did save him a T-shirt.
We got you a shirt,
One of
and
the 20th anniversary shirts. Show back.
cool.
There you go. Nice. So we got you covered, Gus.
Still going through
Gus
commentary.
probably typed that. We're
Does anybody miss me?
We miss you
We
guys.
miss you.
Well, okay, maybe a little.
We miss you.
Be honest with
Okay.
Next question. How do you know if you are getting good training? What are the red flags of bad training?
That's a great
That's a fantastic question.
There's a lot of red flags. A lot of, if you know those the Bill Engvall things, you might be a redneck if, is that Bill Engvall or is that?
That was Bill Engvall. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're
okay.
right.
So you might be a redneck if, okay, so if your instructor says, do it this way, and you ask why, and he says, because I said so. Okay, that's a red flag. Pack up and quietly leave.
I had a good one last week. A student said his previous instructor said, "Oh, just put yes on the medical, that you are fine."
Oh man.
Or mark everything up.
Sorry, just put no. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, mark everything no. Like you don't have any medical condition. That's a massive red flag to start with. I was
super dangerous.
taking back, like really? I won't mention any name. Someone that's fairly well known.
But really, it's pretty difficult because there's even people with really big names in the industry that I get students coming to me all the time from them that they want me to fix them. So I don't really even know how to answer that. Find out where they're diving and who has video of them diving. If they look like they should look like in the water.
It's really a difficult situation because I really feel bad for the students as well, because what happens is they don't.
You don't
I
know. You don't know.
I like to speak more about myself. You don't know what you don't know, right? So, if let's say, for example, I take a DPV class and I hook the DPV up, and the DPV it's moving me through the water. Well,
Anybody can.
I don't know too much, but seems like I'm a pretty good DPV diver. My instructor taught me how to pull the trigger and
zoom.
make sure it's connected and go. Was that a good class in my mind? Maybe, because I got nobody to tell me what I really should be doing and how to do it. So it's difficult. This is not easy. Why then do I love cave adventures? I don't shy away from it on Dive Talk. I'm partial. Because they showed me, well, you really don't know what you're doing. And this is why. And this is what you should look like. And we hear about the littlest details. And those little details, I have to be taught. When I did them, just little things that I even had to turn and how to make it, holy crap. It's a whole different ball game. No wonder my arms were falling off when I first used it. Like little stuff. So I don't know how to tell you how you know, other than you should probably talk to a bunch of people that are pretty experienced in the dive industry and seek a lot of people's opinion about who really is great at teaching this stuff. And it makes a big difference. If your class is super easy and you cruise through it, probably I'm gonna guess that you did not have a good class. So I don't think it's easy.
I'd say pick an instructor that do the kind of diving you're seeking training for often, regularly. People that are current, people that don't cut corners, and don't break rules. That would be a very good start. Unfortunately,
Other than that, it's really difficult. I mean,
It is.
when I started teaching again, I never even advertised one time that I even taught. And a lot of people are just have blogs and video things about them, and hey, look at me, check me out, come and see me. That's probably the guy you want to stay away from. But it's tough.
It's all day. Like your class for these technical training, think about this as well. If you should be in there with those instructors in the morning, you're going to be setting up your gear, they're going to be going through all that with you, you're going to be diving, you're going to come back after, you're going to watch video. These guys spend I've been here for 14 hours, and they don't stop. They care. I don't know. If you're not getting that, then know that exists. I'm telling you now that does exist, and that is what you want to get, and you will come out better. I don't know. It's a very hard question.
It really is. All right, what else we got?
So, hey guys, love you all. Question, what is the best way to, now they put increase a person's SAC rate. I'm hoping that they meant decrease.
All right, so that's a tough question as well, because really the only way to do it is things that we as instructors shouldn't be telling you to do. So
one gets some experience.
I read an article. I'm not saying to do this, absolutely not. But I read an article 35 years ago on this, and they called it skip breathing, where you take a breath and hold it. Now, the first thing they teach you in open water class is don't hold it. So the only way to do that, well, for one, the better your fundamentals are, and we keep stressing fundamentals. What are fundamentals? I used to say every movement costs energy and energy costs gas. Okay, that is not proper English. However, it's short and to the point. Every time you turn, it takes, your muscles are using oxygen, and you need to replenish that oxygen. So, plus, the bigger you are, that's why women generally have better sac rates than men, because they're smaller and their lungs are smaller. So, plus a lot of it's brain activity, and I don't have one, apparently. So I don't waste any of that oxygen. I used to have a very, very low sac rate. Most of the time, if you didn't know your sac rate in a TriMax class, we would go by a 0.7, which was an average. If you had below a 0.7, it was considered a good sac rate. If you got down below a 0.5, it was considered an exceptionally good sac rate. I used to have below a 0.3 sac rate. Now, I've been on, because I quit dive rebreathers for quite a while when I was doing side mount only. And side mount rebreathers are fairly new. Back in 16 is when side mount rebreathers became a thing. So I've been, for the last 7 years, on nothing but rebreathers. So when I go to open circuit, can I still breathe like I did before on open circuit? I can come close to that. I can get like to a 0.4. But afterwards, I've got a migraine headache because as you become more relaxed, as you breathe less, you retain more CO2 and you build up a CO2 tolerance. And now I usually run very high PO2, and no CO2, so I have no CO2 tolerance. So now when I try and do that, afterwards I'm like, oh, I have a migraine headache, and that's the CO2 buildup. So basically, have good fundamentals, be calm and relaxed. And the best way to be calm and relaxed is have good fundamentals. When you're going through the water like this and you're motionless and you're doing minimal kicks, I see people when they're frog kicking, their kicks are non-stop. If you watch me, it's one kick and I glide. And plus I don't swim very fast. I go in there for the beauty. I'm not in a race. If I'm going to be in a hurry, I grab one of those mini scooters over there and haul out. So calm, good fundamentals, and the better diver you become, the more relaxed you'll be, and you'll, as Tom Mount said in one of his cave manuals many years ago, it's like a Zen thing. You will become one with the cave. He actually wrote that in one of his manuals. So, but it's true. The more relaxed you get, it will come naturally.
So the next question, what are your favorite places to dive, or where would you not dive again?
Where would I not dive again?
University.
The back of Vortex. When I got past looking for the Benny Daniels, Lighters, everything back in 2010. The map ends at 1,200 feet. The cave does not. And it was extremely nasty. I didn't know if I was going to make it home. That might have been back to the very first question of what was the scariest dive when I got lost off the line trying to turn around. Anyway, I would probably never go back there ever again. Where do I like to dive? There's so many. I love caves. The caves here on Mill Pond are beautiful because they're controlled by dams, so they don't get those brown and black walls. They're very white. Hole in the Wall is an exceptional cave. There's 60,000 feet of cave. You might go through where there's a 5-foot duck under, and it's 50 feet tall on the other side. One of the more beautiful caves is the Crystal Caves of Abaco over with Brian Haycook. Some of the most spectacular, the glass factories. I mean, I've been in caves all over the world, and I don't know that I've seen anything better than the stalactites and the rosebuds. If you're a cave diver and you have good fundamentals, we're back to the fundamentals, because if you don't have good fundamentals, Brian's going to take you to Dan's cave first, and you're never going to see your house. You're never going to see the good stuff. So you better have good fundamentals. But the glass factory. There's so many things in the Crystal Caves of Abaco. Yeah, they're just mind-numbing. There's a lot of really good stuff in Mexico, but the Crystal Caves, I think are probably still the best.
For me, I've got special places in my heart. In Florida, Holding the Wall is probably my favorite cave. As I said, it's just phenomenal. It keeps on giving, and I haven't seen it all. In France, a couple places in the lot, including Marshall Pier, the OSL that you've been to, are very nice. Then be some sea diving.
The France caves didn't make it just because I'm a puss and they're too cold. I loved all the caves. I would love to go back. Buddy and I have been talking about making a trip.
Yeah.
But they're cold.
They are a little bit colder than here.
He said he's gonna hug me when we get out.
I will, with some nice warm hot chocolate.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I've been lucky enough to walk in Truck Lagoon. That's like
Amazing.
top wreck diving I've ever done. It's just absolutely beautiful. And for the ease of just jumping into a board short and a single backmount BCD, I'll probably grab Bali or Rajapat, as Terry can tell you about. That's for like Indonesia, right? Just absolutely stunning and colorful and amazing. Yeah. What about you, Willie?
I mean, when I first went underwater in Indonesia, I literally cried. I could not believe what I was seeing. I went to the North Pond to see way out. It's not hit a lot at certain times of the year where it's suitable. I could not believe the amount of soft coral, hard coral, all healthy, all fighting for position and the variety of marine life. Indonesia is just like there's a dive god that blessed their reefs. It's incredible. Even more than Australia. I've dove all through Australia. I've dove Palau. Chuck Lagoon is amazing for the wrecks, but Indonesia, man, just wow. It's like the Crystal Caves in cave diving.
For
Indonesia's like
reef coral in life,
I would say.
it's the place to be for sure.
I have to agree with that. I've only been to Indo once, but the entire color spectrum is underwater there. Like black, white, red, yellow, purple, green, all of it. I'm a big fan of ice climbing. Is there anything that divers can learn from the climbing community and vice versa?
I think so. The discipline.
You climb,
Climbing is a similar level of training. There are no exceptions to breaking those rules. It's very disciplined. You need to be with excellent instructors. It's super technical. And if you don't follow those rules, you're going to die. So I like that discipline, that discipline of following those rules and learning those. And by the way, it's similar also that when you think you've got it, and you think you're pretty good, you're just starting. And that's same with cave diving. I got my cave cert, and I remember Brian, when I got my cave cert, this really is just giving you the license to just start learning.
License to
And
learn.
you told me that as well. Now you can start learning. Now you can really, you better practice a lot. So that, I think there's a lot of
And
correlation.
you remember in all my classes, they say, when I first got finished with open water class, I was looking at somebody else over there that was not on our dive, but in the same location. And I just said, how can I be better tomorrow? And now, 11, 12,000 cave dives later, all I can think about is how can I be better tomorrow? So what do? When we come back? Every dive, you have to do a 3 to 5 minute safety stop, even if we're at no decompression level, or decompression stop. And I make all my students turn into the flow and hover perfect trim, perfectly motionless, and they can't touch it. If they touch a rock, I slap their hands.
There's no, you're not
doing that.
You're trying to hear when you think, I made it through the skills. Not so fast.
Nope. Dive is not over until we're back in
You're
the
out of
class.
the water. You're done. It's
And
great.
on one of the dives, I came back, I was diving solo, and I got to the cavern, and I only had about 8 minutes to leave, 10 minutes. So I'm sitting over there, and what I'll do is I'm hovering, perfectly motionless, and I'll pick up rocks. And that sounds stupid and easy, but it's not. To be perfect and pick up a pea-sized rock and set it up on top of something else. And then sometimes I would pick a rock and I would touch my nose to it. And I do these things to practice all the time. I never stop practicing. And 2 divers apparently were coming out, and I'm over here doing this, and they come up and there's a shelf that a lot of divers lay on. my divers are not allowed to do that. But they went up there and they're laying there decompressing and they're watching me and they have no idea what I'm doing.
No wonder I never saw that show. Where's that show?
Oh, yeah, that's,
So I finish and go out. I still didn't even see them up there. I was tipped this way and they're over here. I grabbed my O2 bottle and headed out. When they came up, they were like very concerned looking. They're like, "How was your dive, man?" I said, "It was good, thanks. How was yours?" And they go, "Everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was good." And they just kept going. And I said, "Is there something you need to say?" And they go, "Well, it looked like you were kissing the ground like you were happy you were alive. We thought maybe something horrible." And I said, "No, I was practicing." And they go, "You're in Sorenson. You don't have to practice." I'm like, "No, I practice every day." So, yeah, practice, practice, practice.
I was talking about that, and I think we should explain a little bit what we've been trying to do recently by implementing, basic fundamental into our classes, and how we get there, and what brought us to get there.
Yeah, so we haven't really even advertised this. We talked about it a little bit earlier on. Some people have already found out. We've already got several classes already booked.
Yeah.
He just finished one.
Yeah.
I just finished the KCC one. The guy was just overwhelmed at how much better he was at the end of the dive. So we saw that when people were struggling, and a lot of people say cave training is hard, cave adventure training is hard. It's really not with good fundamentals. These guys, Jay, at 15 years old, you can't even start cave diving until you're 18. I had to get waivers, I had to talk to the family, and they both, they made them both okay that both parents were okay with it, not just one. That was with the NSSE. And they were taught this way. They were taught all the fundamentals in open water class, so they had no bad habits to break. They had buoyancy skills, they had horizontal trim, they had all this stuff. And when we did in tavern class, they breezed through it. And if you ever had, we all have pets, and if you ever taken and thrown a dog a treat, they're like, and they can't wait for that next treat. And Jay and Frank were like that. Every skill, it was just took. What do you got? What's next? What's next? And we're done. And they're like, "That's it? That's it? Can we start intro?" I said, "No. You have to do 25 dives at that level." And they said, "You do tavern intro classes all the time." I said, "Yeah, but you work for me. I hold you to higher standards. Do 25 dives, then we'll move on to intro." So we did. They both did. And we did intro. They nailed it. I mean, killed it. And they're like, "Can we do apprentice?" I said, "No, do 25 dives." Well, in between apprentice and full, Jay started going out with a bunch of people that were not trained here. And we got back from the first dive of full cave class, and he knows, what do? Turn into the flow and hover perfectly for our couple minutes of deco or safety time. We come around the corner, I'm looking at this student, and I'm looking, I'm like, "What the hell's Jay? I just lost a student. He's pinned to the ceiling." I'm like, "I don't believe he just did that." And I went, "Get down here." And I did this. And he came down, and after the dive, I said, "What was that?" "Oh, yeah, I've been diving with Bill. He said that that it's really cool to go pin yourself to the ceiling and you can hang out there motionless." I flunked him right there on the spot. He killed every skill, and I flunked him. And he almost cried. He was literally in tears because he knew he killed every skill. And I said, "No." I said, "We'll do it again."
Yeah.
And I made him do that whole 5 day again. And he's never pinned himself to the ceiling since. So,
Next question, where can I get a shirt?
where can you get a shirt?
On the website.
So, you can call the shop. And we've got, I don't know if we have any of these left over, but we've got more being made up. And you can call the shop. We have,
We got our website, caveadventure.com.
yeah, we have 3 different styles. If you want one of these, I think there's some. Yeah.
He's been sitting out there waiting. So you just didn't want to.
Sorry.
So we've got a class getting ready to start, so we've got about another 5 minutes to wrap this up. So what else we got?
Great question.
Who are your dive heroes?
Well, one of them was there today at the 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them. Lamar Hires, that owns Zinetti, has been a good friend of mine for many years. Like I said at the barbecue today, there was, and like I talked about in all my side-nut classes, that in talking about the history of side-nutting, when it was brought to North Florida for cave exploration, there was 5 guys, and they called themselves the original mole crew. One of them was Wes Skiles, who was a very good friend of mine, passed away a few years back. He used to come stay at my house all the time. We did a lot of that together. Ron Simmons, Mark Long, Woody Jasper, and Lamar Hires, the 5 original mole crew. There's only 3 of them that are still alive, and 2 of the 3 were here today. And I talked about this earlier, that it was, Lamar is a very, very busy man, and he made time to come up here and do this. And Woody Jasper has been retired and quit cave diving, but he made a point to come up, and that was, you know, that was awesome. And Lamar was one of my mentors back when site diving was a job-specific tool. I'm the one that started promoting it as to do everything with. And it grew into what it is now, where half the world has never even put doubles on. In fact, people used to say, don't listen to Ed, he's dangerous, he'll get you killed, nobody needs to side mount. And now everybody is side mount. But anyway, Lamar was one of my mentors. Back then, there was no such thing as a side mount harness. You couldn't go out and buy one. We had to build it. So mine was crappy. And Lamar helped me build my first really good one. And then later on, he built the Nomad, and Kurt Bowen and Brett Hemphill built the Armadillo, very ahead of its time. All great guys. You know, of course, Shaq. But yeah, there's a lot of people that I really looked up to, and I tried to learn everything from everybody. And then I took kind of like what Bruce Lee was to martial arts. He took 50 different styles. I like that, but I don't like any of that stuff. I like that, but I don't like that other stuff. And he made his own. And so that's what I did many years ago with my instruction, is I kind of got rid of a lot of the nonsensical stuff and brought in things that work, like the way we do air shears differently. And there's a lot of things, but there's a lot. And 2 of them were here today, and I've met a lot of people.
That's awesome. Mehdi, what about you?
Well, there is a few people that I obviously impacted as well. I went to choose my diving career. First of all, I got my friend and mentor here that I'm lucky enough to be around every day, like for sure. Xavier Meniscus, French diver that's pushing really hard down in the Pyrenees, going very deep and doing some extreme diving. And Cousteau, like every good French people.
Oh, I used to watch the Jacques Cousteau when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think many of us have, that's what triggered that, like, oh wow,
And then of course,
war under there.
of course, TV version, but still Lloyd Bridges. I mean,
Yes.
anybody our age,
Love it.
if you didn't watch that.
Woody?
I talk about mine all the time on Dive Talk. You know, I'm gonna
Pass.
leave that.
Okay.
I mean,
Go watch some videos.
These guys are part of it. I have a group of people that I look up to. A group of people that I've learned from. I've learned from both of them. So, you know, obviously Brian. I take things away from different instructors that make me look up to them. There's no one that, oh my God, that's the end all of the end all. I've been really lucky. I've had the opportunity to dive with, you know, incredible people, and there's a handful more. I mean, so I talk about them all the time on Dive Talk, and I'll leave it at that. But
So-
we gotta wrap it up. I'm just worried because
We're going to take one more question because I think this one is
Questions?
last question because I think this one is a little bit interesting. Sam Moyer says, "Hi Sam, are there any plans to reinvestigate the Lost Sea Cave since equipment has improved so much since the last expedition in the late 70s?"
The Lost Sea Caves?
That's what he says.
where are they?
I'm not even sure I'm aware of the Lost Sea Caves.
Say, let's go find it.
Still lost. I mean, must be still lost. I don't know what that is.
No.
Fair enough.
So Sam Get us some information on that.
And send
And
to
we
us.
will research that and maybe have an expedition.
That would be
Sounds like an
cool.
excuse for an expedition to me.
Absolutely.
So-
And we're gonna name it the Sam Expedition when we go.
So is there any last
Well,
comments
yeah,
that you guys want to
thanks,
share?
everybody. Look, I mean, I like this type of dialogue. We're gonna try to do more of it. Let's take this kind of a discussion and elevate the dive industry, where it's okay to disagree in a respectful way, where we discuss different opinions, different facts, or ask questions if you aren't sure. And then we're all gonna be better. You're gonna bring a lot more people into the dive industry if you do it that way, okay? I can tell you that for sure. So, thank you very much.
And one last closing thought from me.
Thank you.
If some of these keyboard experts that didn't get to watch live and sit in on the things that we were talking about, but they would like to school me on their opinions or their facts that were different from my facts, which we did on live footage. You all know my number. The people that, the two in particular, one of them just called me not too long ago about an incident and my UCRR stuff, so I know you have my phone number. Stop bashing me online and call me. You know my number, give me a call. And the one in Mexico, John, you know better. You used to be big TDI, you know better than to do that. That's a QA violation. And if you have something to say to me, I'm willing to talk 24 hours a day. Just give me a call, you know my number, and I send it to you. So,
It might be behind you too.
and it might be behind me. And pretty much anybody and everybody knows my phone number. And if not, guess what? There's a thing called Google, and you can find it really quickly. So, if you've got something to say, you want something, if you want to teach me something, by all means, I'm always willing to learn. So, but like what he said, if you don't like shutoffs, I don't care. Don't like them. That's fine. I'm happy that you don't like them. I'm happy that you have an opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. But don't tell me I'm wrong when I proved it without a shadow of a doubt that I'm not. You are. So if you have something that's going to refute that, by all means, give me a call. Let's go down. You show me how much better you are tonight. I said I welcome that to anybody outside of the English world, anytime, anywhere, any place. All right.
My final word will be that yes, the training at Cave Adventure is hard, but it's because we can. I promise we are nice people.
And once you finish your fundamentals course, it's not hard.
Yeah, we are nice people. We do what we do because we love it and we really care about your training, making you a safer diver, a better diver all around. So,
And we don't want to worry about ever having to put you in the body bag.
yeah.
I got enough stuff to do.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.